Okay, holy moly. Maybe now, after 16 minutes of battling the digital demons, maybe now we will be able to go live. Wow. You spend so much time jumping through these hoops. And obviously, something is wrong. So, that's part of the learning curve, I guess. So, Deb, finally, good afternoon. How are you? Holy moly, the hoops I've been jumping through. Man, I have had nothing but trouble. And I followed the recipe to a T. Promise. I double and triple checked so that I wouldn't have the technical difficulties, huh? And instead, I doubled and tripled up on the technical difficulties. Holy moly. So, I guess it's just you and me for right now. I don't know if anyone else is gonna come in, but I made it public just because it would not allow me. I had to set the thing up on Patreon through YouTube. I got everything done. It was ready to go, ready to rock and roll, and it would not allow me to go live. It said live streaming is not available, even though I do it all the time. The only difference is I wasn't using my Streamlabs. I was just using regular old YouTube. So that is something else that I'm going to have to iron out. So I think maybe I will do some looking into how I can fix that. And maybe just, wow. Talk about starting your day frustrated. I was really looking forward to just getting into that. And, man, that's frustrating. So, good morning, good afternoon. I hope at least I can read this, right? So, let's see here. What are we doing here? 3 of us in the house. Yeah, I think they hate me too. Because my subscribers only go down. They don't go up. And I do my best to follow the rules, but I also do my best to push that line, and I talk a little bit too much trash. So, yes, I think you have nailed it that they really dislike me. And it's shown in the analytics. Either way, we saw what happened last night with old Poopy Pants Biden and his speech that was highly inflammatory. I'm still trying to figure out what MAGA Force is. It sounds like an awesome cartoon, though. I can already hear the theme song for Saturday morning cartoons. It's MAGA Force. It's like the Team America of Transformers or something. Oh, man. How frustrating is that? Man, I battled. F you, YouTube. You are so asshole. It's not even funny. So, what did everybody think of Biden's super unifying, super not Hitlerian speech last night? Complete with aesthetics as well. I thought it was less than entertaining. I thought it was something to behold. I have never in my life seen anything like that unless we get in the time machine and go back through history. That's the only time I have ever seen anything even remotely close to that where you demonize half the population and then say you're a unifier. You basically just declared war on a third of the population. MAGA Republicans and MAGA Force and this, that, and the other thing. And Boy, it's wild. Now, I am what you would call politically homeless, but the more the rhetoric seems to go this way, it's natural to want to stand against that. And anybody that saw that last night and has any even cursory view of history standing against that. And it makes a person wonder, me being that person, is this the intent? Is the left side being so brazen to call out what we're going to call from now on MAGA force? And I want you to really get like a Team America picture in your head when I say MAGA force, because that's how cartoonish this has become. And we're going to start calling him Shitler, because he's a shitty Hitler or he shits his pants, however you want to say. So, or Bitchler, Biden Shitler, however you want to say. It all works and it's all funny. But anyway, Shitler, he goes up there and he didn't really say anything. I didn't hear him mention inflation, fentanyl, the border, gas prices, crime. Even though during his speech several times we heard sirens. Now, I'm not sure if some of those were from the dude with the bullhorn that kept screaming F Joe Biden, which I thought was hilarious. And I didn't hear anything that was unifying. What I heard, and correct me if you feel I'm wrong here, but this is an opinion either way. I heard a declaration of war against people, and going back to the press secretary Cringe. Secretary Cringe said, anyone thinking outside the majority is extreme. And I know that's kind of paraphrasing there, but that's what she said the same day. And he came out and he said, as a Catholic, that MAGA force stands against, what did he say? Women's rights? Is that how he framed it? And he stands against, you can't marry who you want to marry. That's how he framed the gay marriage thing. There's 3 or 4 things right there. We could go back and watch the whole speech again, but you guys saw how they treated me last night for doing that. So I might have to just go through and cut clips. But either way, a couple hundred years ago, our founding fathers basically declared their revolution at that same building. That was Independence Hall in Philadelphia, standing right near the Liberty Bell. And while he was making his Hitlerian gestures and making his inflammatory remarks, you could almost hear the Liberty Bell cracking. Now, I am not MAGA force, but if someone was to point a pew at me and say, choose one, I'm not choosing Shitler. Okay, I'm not a big fan of Trump, and I just have this weird sneaking suspicion that all this is being done to make people rally to the side that is going to, in the future, do the things that the Dems are actually saying. What I'm saying is I think this is a bigger plan than what we are thinking. We're thinking it's kind of a political battle, left versus right, but we all know left wing, right wing, same bird. And we all know about the Great Reset. We all know about this, and I have this sneaking suspicion that the left is going full commie, full evil in order to foment the backlash they want. Does that make sense? The crime is being done on purpose, and these are all part of the, however you want to say, the communist playbook. You know, these are points taken out of the manifesto of Karl Marx, straight out of the communist goals, the communist playbook. Herbie, come here. So, anyways, they're also, you know, I've seen so much inflammatory rhetoric back and forth on Twitter now, and that Jennifer Rubin, that New York Times reporter, holy shnikes, she came out and said all that needs to happen now is the mass arrests. I couldn't believe she said that. Let me make sure I have that quote. Jennifer Rubin, at JRubinBlogger on Twitter. This tweet has been deleted. Biden's Philadelphia speech met the moment. Mass arrests should come next. That's what she said. This way. There it is. Mass arrests should come next. Now, that probably came across blurry, but you heard the quote. And Biden actually had another Beavis moment, you know, where he doubles up the fists and poops his pants. He did it again last night. The man clearly has dementia. He's clearly being puppeteered by communists. We are in the midst of some serious, serious stuff in this country. And I can't help but think that people who saw last night and aren't stopping to think about it, they just fly on their feelings, they're the ones that are going to run to the right. And I can see why, because last night looked like a cross between Hitler and the Emperor from Star Wars. Yeah, the mass arrests are people who dissent. Yes, that's right. People who don't want to defer to the power of the evil. Yes, that is correct. And man, I fancy myself as a at least mediocre thinking person. Okay, there's geniuses out there, there's smart people, there's well-studied people, they're all above me. And then there's plenty of dummies below me. I try to think of myself always as the median. Right in the middle. I'm no genius and I'm no dummy. I get things right, I get things wrong, I'm right in the middle. Boy, I cannot shake this feeling. I cannot shake this feeling that this is being done on purpose to shift everybody right. They used the left and these useful idiots to destroy. Everybody sees that. Everybody sees that they're allowed to do that. Okay, we talked about last night, and I know it was choppy, and you probably didn't hear anything. I'm sorry about that. I talked a bunch of trash, and probably got myself, I don't know if it's shadow banned or throttled, however you turn down the algorithm. I don't know. I must have said a bunch of trigger words. But anyways, last night he said some things talking about MAGA force is the most extreme. They're destroying things. It's the crime. And I couldn't help but think, you rooted on the Antifa BLM riots. Your vice president was part of the Minneapolis Freedom Fund, which bailed out people to the tune of anywhere from $80,000 to $400,000 per bailout. They went on to commit more crimes. What the hell are you talking about? And it's the commie way to project. I think it was Goebbels that said, accuse the other side of that which you are guilty. Okay, that's a very nice way of saying projection. Project your dirty deeds onto your opponent. And that's what happened last night, in my opinion. He came out and he gave the most divisive speech I have ever heard. Ever. Couple that with the aesthetics, that red background. Holy cow, man. It just, it's wild. So, we have talked extensively about the American, however you want to say it, the American Communist Revolution, the American Color Revolution. Last night sounded like the coming out party for that. And it did a lot of damage to the Democrats, I'll tell you that. Even Democrats were like, whoa, 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 whoa. But it made the radical, the more extreme elements of that far left, it made them more brazen. That's how you get a tweet from Jennifer Rubin like that. Mass arrests are next. They went full Q. They flipped it around. Like the hair went from my head to my chin. Full reversal. So now they're not screaming about Q anymore. They are Q. Weird, right? Blue Anon. Or in Biden's case, Poo Anon. The thing is, there's a certain element of society that doesn't have the mental horsepower to wrap their head around this. And they're going to go full radical. Now there's a MAGA force. The president's talking about it, you guys. It must be bad. It must be bad. And although nobody sees it, kiddies, knock it. Yeah, let's go, Brandon. Mind-blowing. Mind-numbingly dumb what's going on here. So, we've seen all the way from DAs like Chesa Boudin and, Kim Foxx in Minneapolis. Several of these DAs are dropping charges for one side. But if you are a pale male and you even look at a person that isn't white, cross-eyed, that's a felony. And you can see exactly, how would you say? You can see the double standard is right in front of your face. Okay, the DA is dropping charges and having bailout funds for the left side, political prisoners on the right. You know, that J6 thing, they could have gotten to the bottom of that, but they chose to use it as a political tool. And what they really wanted on J6, what they really wanted was a Reichstag fire. That's what the left is looking for, in my opinion. That's this whole diversity, inclusion, and equity, DIE, that is the Trojan horse for communism. You can see what's going on in Denmark and in England and in Ireland. If you look those places up, there is some crazy stuff going on. And it's always race-based. Excuse me, sound like Biden. So anyways, the stated goal of these communists has been to develop a white liberal army to couple with a black nationalist army to fight against patriotic Americans, your middle class, basically. And we see that that's what they have done. So I've done a lot on Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn of the Weather Underground. And that's what their plan was. Their living room is where Barack Obama started his campaign for, mayor? So there are links, definite links, and I've done videos and talked about that ad nauseum, so there's nobody here that's excited to hear about it again. But this was their biggest opportunity since Smedley Butler foiled their last plan after World War II. There was a plan to have 500,000 men take over the functions of government under the direction of General Smedley Butler. Now, I wonder if I can find that. There's several videos on it, but this is... Yes, I saw the nightclub in Australia. You need permission to stare at someone. I saw that. That's ridiculous. Did you know that in their parks in Australia, you now have to wear a helmet if you want to go jogging? That's what we're doing. We're nerfing the world. Okay? So I'm looking for the plot to overthrow FDR, December 28th, 1935. So let me see if I can find a video on this. There it is. So let's go ahead. Let me go over here and click here. I got to get a winder capture. Let me go right there. Let me go here. Let me get a window capture. Add that source, baby. Give me that Twitter Smedley Butler. I'm done. Okay. That's what I wanted. This one right here. General Butler bears plot by fascists. And let's listen. The longest intro ever. Sorry about that. I don't think it matters how you stare at him, Okie girl. I think it's just the fact that you do. All right. So, this is the original, and we're getting the new plot. So, let's take a listen here.
I appeared before the Congressional Committee, the highest representation of the American people, under subpoena to tell what I knew of activities which I believe might lead to an attempt to set up a fascist dictatorship. The plan as outlined to me was to form an organization of veterans, to use as a bluff, or as a club at least, to intimidate the government and break down our democratic institutions. The upshot of the whole thing was that I was supposed to lead an organization of 500,000 men, which would be able to take over the functions of government. I talked with an investigator for this committee who came to me with a subpoena on Sunday, November 18th. He told me they had unearthed evidence linking my name with several such veteran organizations. As it then seemed to me to be getting serious, I felt it was my duty to tell all I knew of such activities to this committee. My main interest in all this is to preserve our democratic institution. I want to retain the right to vote, the right to speak freely, and the right to write. If we maintain these basic principles, our democracy is safe. No dictatorship can exist with suffrage, freedom of speech, and press.
Yeah. What did he say?
No dictatorship can exist with suffrage, freedom of speech, and press.
No dictatorship can exist with freedom of speech, suffrage, and freedom of press. Well, that's pretty awesome. That's the guy that they recruited to take over our country in 1935. 1935, you guys. That's at the same time old real Hitler was just starting over there in Germany. Imagine where we'd be right now if that had been successful. Morning, Bear. I'm still of the opinion that the Nazis didn't lose. The Germans did. The Nazis didn't. They went underground. They rebranded. They were basically drafted like a sports team between the USA, the Soviet Union, Argentina, Brazil, etc. England, I'm sure, got a few, but the big players in there were the US and the Soviet Union. Oh yeah, Bear, that was pretty nasty last night. They got me good. So there's plenty of proof that the Nazis never lost. They just rebranded. We never got a roster of their descendants. So that's how you get people like Chrystia Freeland, the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, whose grandfather was a Nazi collaborator. That's how you get Governor Arnold Schwollenpecker. He's from Austria. His father was Gustav Schwarzenegger. He was the Nazi, yeah? That's how you get Klaus Schwab. His father was Eugen Schwab, or Eugene Schwab, head of Escher Weiss, part of the Nazi military-industrial complex. And he ran one of those factories that used slave labor. That's Klaus Schwab's father. How about Kurt Waldheim? How about the head of the EU? How about we could just go on and on and on and on and on. So, I found this from Thursday, January 10th, 1963. I've never heard of this before. It's from the Congressional Record, Current Communist Goals. Hey, what is this here? You go do cat things. All right, Mr. Herlong, Mr. Speaker, Mrs. Patricia Nordman of DeLand, Florida, is an ardent and articulate opponent of communism, and until recently published the DeLand Courier, which she dedicated to the purpose of alerting the public to the dangers of communism in America. At Mrs. Nordman's request, I include in the record, meaning the Congressional Record, the following is being read into the Congressional Record. Under unanimous consent, the following, quote, current communist goals, which she identifies as an excerpt from The Naked Communist by Cleon Skousen. So, we are going to get into this in just a second. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourselves about the slime balls trying to do a color revolution right under our noses. I'll be right back. Alrighty. I'm back. So, the kitties are acting up. Yes. But that was me trying to avoid a Joe Biden moment. I've had a lot of coffee this morning, so bear with me. Yeah, they're just playing, but boy, this guy, he's the athlete. This guy, Gus. You get down from there. And we bought him a couple of cat trees so they can climb and do all their kitty things. And he likes to jump from one to the other even though they're 10 feet apart. And, man, he's really strong. He's an athlete, that's for sure. Either way, let's move on to the current communist goals. Now, I'm going to make myself a little smaller right there. There we go. That way, we just get to read. Nobody wants to look at me. Here we are, transitioning. Ew. Current communist goals. Now, on several videos, we have talked about the communist playbook and this and that and the other thing, but this seems to be a more comprehensive list than the bullet points that I'm able to pull out of the news, like defunding police and bail reform, dropping charges, intentionally increasing crime, increasing homelessness, all those kind of pretty basic bullet points that anybody who's paying attention can grab. But here we go. I just can't win. Beaker! You quit it. Alright. Where we at here? Commies. That's right. You stinking cats are commies. They didn't like that. They all went away. So, let's go through this and we'll see just how close they are, because frankly, after last night, you don't make a speech like that unless you're A, ready to rock and roll, or B, full-blown desperate. Full-blown desperate. Well, I hit the wrong button on you there, Katura. I meant to put... Never mind. Type it again if you want. Hit the wrong button. So, current communist goals. Here we go. Number 1. United States acceptance of coexistence as the only alternative to atomic war. 2. U.S. willingness to capitulate in preference to engaging in atomic war. So I think that they're talking about here is they want to avoid atomic war, and coexist is kind of, just live together. Capitulate means you're going to stand down in preference to engaging in atomic war. And I think we can all pretty much agree with those. We don't want atomic war. Number 3, develop the illusion that total disarmament by the United States would be a demonstration of moral strength. Okay, the illusion. Everybody knows you don't mess with the guy with the big gun or the big stick. You know what I mean? So, disarmament would be the illusion. It would be an invitation to whoever wants to cause trouble. Number 4, permit free trade between all nations, regardless of communist affiliation and regardless of whether or not items could be used for war. And I think we see that. Losing power. Who's losing power? Me? Losing power. Nope. I got this coffee right here. I am charged. And I think we've seen plenty of trade agreements that have opened up huge portions of the world Number 5, extension of long-term loans to Russia and Soviet satellites. Now, I'm not an expert on finances, but I'm pretty sure that America has no problem providing loans or giving out money. Look at what we're doing with the crane. You know what I mean? With UKR. I think they're talking about sending another 100 billion, even though we can't even keep shit out of our streets. Literally. That's a literal statement. Looking at you, San Francisco Poo Patrol. 6, provide American aid, there it is, that's what we were just talking about, to all nations regardless of communist domination. That is UKR right there. And why is it that UKR President Volodymyr Zelensky keeps posting pictures of soldiers that have Nazi symbol tattoos? And I don't just mean the swastika. I'm talking the Sonnenrad. I'm talking the swastika. I mean, it's simple to look up. It really is. You got the black sun. You have the swastika. There's several clearly Nazi symbols. Zombie 5, what's going on? You haven't missed a whole lot. Just talking trash on the commies. Number 7. Grant recognition of Red China. Now, we just discussed this the other day. That was this guy's whole deal. Grant admission of Red China to the UN. And I believe just a couple of weeks ago, the Chinese were accepted to the UN Security Council. At the same time, they are committing atrocities in their own country. It's pretty weird. And if you didn't know, Henry Kissinger, the author of the book I just showed, is the mentor to one Klaus Schwab, wanting you to eat the bugs, yeah? How does the shit apple not fall far from the shit tree, Randy? I think Clintstone would make an awesome college professor. I wouldn't last. Those people would me right out of existence. Yeah, I would end up getting sniped. Oh, there's Professor Clintstone. Get him! I can already see it. Hell no. 8. Set up East and West Germany as separate states in spite of Khrushchev's promise in 1955 to settle the German question by free elections under supervision of the UN. Well, that was done. They had East and West Germany as separate states, even though, and it was all the way up until what, 1989? The Berlin Wall came down? Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Come here, Gus Bus. People want to see you. This is Gus Bus. He's the oldest of the Rudy kids. He doesn't like to be picked up, so before he starts squirming, I'll put him down. You're a good boy, Gus. Go do cat things. Rather eat rocks. Unless you're a hunter and then you smoke them. Ooh. 9. Let's see here. Did we finish 8? Set up, yeah, East and West Germany in spite of Khrushchev's promise. Yes, they did that. And when did they get free elections? I think it was 1990, 1991. But that was the end of the Soviet Union. That was the fall of the Berlin Wall. It feels like instead of the defeat of communism, it just went underground and rebranded. Because these people spewing commie rhetoric, they look just like everyone else now. It's not like they're walking around in those, Italian or German uniforms made by Hugo Boss, by the way. I don't know if you guys know, but I think it was Hugo Boss that made the Nazi uniforms. They're walking around in a suit and tie. You know, you got people like Swalwell banging a Chinese spy. You got people like Kinzinger. It's unreal. They look just like everyone else. You can't just tell them apart. Hey Gus, Deb says you're cute. Oh, look at him. You made it. You're blowing up his head over here. Settle down with your ego. Number 9. Prolong the conferences to ban atomic tests because the United States has agreed to suspend tests as long as negotiations are in progress. So that seems to be a way to keep the U.S. from developing better technology. Prolong the conferences because as long as there's conferences or negotiations, the U.S. will suspend the tests. If the tests are suspended, you're not making progress. 10. Allow all Soviet satellites individual representation in the UN. Okay, so this, once the balkanization of the Soviet Union happened and the big Soviet Union split up into all those different countries, you know, everything from, who did they take over? They took over Poland, they took over Czechoslovakia, which is now the Czech Republic, or Czechia, and Slovakia. I could go on. How about Lithuania? How about Estonia? How about, oh boy, trying to pull all of these out of the map in my head. I'm gonna have to turn around. Ukraine would probably be one. Oops, there's a trigger word. Sorry about that, CommiTube. Romania, Moldova, Belarus, Latvia, maybe even Finland. I don't know if they got into Finland, but I remember seeing pictures out of Finland in the 80s. It didn't look like a great place. And yes, they all ended up with individual representation in the UN as it calls for here. And it seems like this seems to be like the major playbook. Okay? Number 11. Promote the UN as the only hope for mankind. Well, we know they're doing that. You know, you have the UN, you have the WEF, you have the WHO, you have all of these different giant organizations. How about International Monetary Fund? How about World Bank? How about World Economic Forum? United Nations? World Health Organization? I could keep going, but there's so many. Bank of International Settlements. If its charter is rewritten, meaning the UN, if the UN's charter is rewritten, demand that it be set up as a one world government with its own independent armed forces. So, this should be the eye-opener, because this is why I say we are in the middle of a global communist revolution. Okay, because this is exactly what these World Bank, Bank of International Settlements, International Monetary Fund, all these different things, especially the World Economic Forum, that's what they're calling for. A one world government with their own independent armed forces. So, where do you think they would get the independent armed forces? From blue helmets, right? And those are, you know, I would say at least half of those have got to be Chinese. That doesn't seem like a good time. Some communist leaders believe the world can be taken over as easily by the UN as by Moscow. Sometimes these two centers compete with each other, as they are doing now in the Congo. Number 12. Resist any attempt to outlaw the Communist Party. Well, that seems like a pretty easy rule. If your goal is communism, you don't want it outlawed. 13. Do away with all loyalty oaths. Like, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's a loyalty oath. I grew up saying that. These kids in these schools, like my son, it's how do you say, if you want to. When I was a kid, if you didn't stand up and say your loyalty oath, you got in trouble. You know what I mean? Communism wants to do away with all loyalty oaths unless it's, these new wokester slogans. But no, it's, what's the word I'm looking for? If you want to, it's optional. The Pledge of Allegiance is optional. That's mind-blowing to me. 14. Continue giving Russia access to the U.S. Patent Office. I don't know a single thing about this one. But I would imagine that Russia, and I should probably stop saying that word because that is one of those trigger words. Isn't that right, commie YouTube, Susan Wojcicki, you bitch? Either way, continue giving the Ruskies access to the U.S. Patent Office. I have no idea if they do or don't have access, and even if they did up until the point where Pootie Poot went west, just a few months ago, and invaded, they probably would have cut that off. So, not sure on 14, but it seems like they're nailing a bunch of these, right? We'll have to go through and count them up. 15, capture one or both of the political parties in the United States. Well, that one, I think we have firmly demonstrated that this one is in the bag. Capture one or both. One or both. So even in 1963, they were firmly in the know that there's only going to be one or two parties. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Anything else. One or both of the political parties. Now that one's in the bag. So we're 1/3 of the way done. And I would say most of the first 15 are in the bag. How does everybody feel? Deb Wood says, when I was a kid, we said the Pledge of Allegiance and we had a morning prayer in public school. Yeah. Now, what kind of kids, and I'm not going to ask your age, I'm not going to ask the year, what kind of kids did that school produce compared to today? Now, obviously, you wouldn't be having iPods, iPads, etc. But I imagine that your class, your school, produced better quality human beings than, say, if I walked over to a random high school today. And we'll get to why here in a minute, because we've got the intentional demoralization of the populace coming up. We've still got a whole lot to talk about old Yuri Bezmenov. So he plays a big part in this. And if not him personally, at least the information that he dropped. Okay, he was a former KGB guy, Yuri Bezmenov, and he did an interview where he dropped the knowledge on how you would demoralize a country, which makes it vulnerable to communism. And it was an eye-opener, to say the least. So let's move on. 19 of you in the house. Good morning. It's 11:05 here on the West Coast. And it's an overcast day. It looks kind of white and orange. Probably got a wildfire or something near. Haven't heard about it, but it's not quite as beautiful a day as yesterday was. But Hell, we're still here and we're making the best of it, right? Let's move on, shall we? 16. Use technical decisions of the courts to weaken basic American institutions by claiming their activities violate civil rights. Well, that one seems to be in the bag as well. One more time. Use technical decisions of the courts to weaken basic American institutions by claiming their activities violate civil rights. Now, I don't know if that goes all the way down the line to saying that math is racist, but it could. But the American Civil Liberties Union and what's the other one? NAACP. No. What's the one I'm thinking of that... I think it's the ACLU that I'm talking about. Everything's racist now. Everything. That's why we're seeing everything woke, anti-white. They're claiming their activities violate civil rights, even if they're not. They're just claiming that. And maybe even technical decisions of the courts, maybe this is the Supreme Court overturning Roe. Okay, and getting people all worked up. Could be a lot of things. Civil rights are all-encompassing. It's not just women's rights or racial rights or human rights. It's all civil rights, right? I'm tired of saying right. All right, moving on. 17. Get control of the schools. That one's in the bag. That's how you have all these pedo teachers, these blue-haired weirdos talking about their indoctrination of the woke religion into their students and hiding it from the parents. One look at the site, Libs of TikTok, will let you know that they have control of schools. Project Veritas just came out last week and blasted some beautiful information about, say, the Trinity School in New York. And there was another one where the guy was on, and I love these hidden videos because these lefties talk about it's a conspiracy theory, but he gets them to say it in their own words. These people are evil. They're pushing an agenda. They're indoctrinating children. This is how they do it. Get control of the schools. Use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. That's wokeness. Soften the curriculum. Okay, that's the dumbing down of the American education system right there. Common Core. Soften the curriculum. Okay, our math is racist, but in China they're learning, calculus in 8th grade. Okay, in Korea they're learning high level math, and we have a 50% grade level reading rate in high school. Okay, we have, for the amount of money we put into the education system, we have the dumbest friggin' students in the world. You've seen these shit kids. They're stupid. They're dumb as shit. The majority of them. Put the party line in textbooks. You've already seen the start of this with all this weird, woke, gender bender nonsense, with all these... You're confusing kids at the most confusing time in their life. And then you're trying to make it okay for them to make a lifelong decision even though they couldn't buy a beer or join the army. It is absolute madness. Moving on. 18. Gain control of all student newspapers. Well, I think if you get control of the schools, you're going to have control of the student newspapers. I imagine that a solid 50% of people in student newspaper rooms, student journalists, you're probably going to do what everyone else is doing. Okay, not a lot of students have that experience in life. You're going to go where your friends go, your parents go. Not a lot of people are doing that requisite studying as a young student. So I would imagine that this was fairly easy, just like this. They got control of the schools. By default, you get control of the newspapers. 19. Use student riots to foment public protests against programs or organizations which are under communist attack. Okay. One of those Project Veritas videos from last week talks about this, and this lady with the let me talk to your manager haircut and a giant gap tooth was talking about how they let their students out to protest. They make signs and all that in like their art club, and then they let them out to protest, but they don't let them off the hook. So when they do that, when they walk out to do that, they give them detention where they teach them more social justice. So this is using student riots to foment public protests against programs or organizations that the communists are already attacking, but you're using the students to help build that. That's what that is. 20. Infiltrate the press. Now, do you think that Brian Stelter is a patriot, or do you think he's just kind of one of those guys that reads the teleprompter and collects a paycheck? Yeah, me too. Infiltrate the press. Get control of book review assignments, editorial writing, and policy-making positions. Well, guess what? That is in the bag. As well as 21, gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and motion pictures. Clintstone College. Oh no. Oh no. Well, at least it's mostly information now. 10 years ago it would have been the MacGyver smoker from Half Baked, how to make a bong out of an avocado and an ice pick and a snorkel. But, yeah, Clintstone College, not sure that's a good idea. Let's see here. 3 fires in East Idaho. Oh, man, be safe. I bet East Idaho's beautiful, though. Weather weapons for sure. They are definitely manipulating the weather. Kids can't read or write cursive. Yeah, that is one of those things. You go up here, get control of the schools. Okay? Soften the curriculum. If you can't read cursive, you can't read the Founding Fathers' documents. If you can't write cursive, then it's difficult to read. Those two things go hand in hand for a reason. And there's a reason they don't want your kids using paper and pencil in math class anymore. Did you know that? I have a son, and he just started high school. The last 3 years, I have battled with math teachers because they won't allow him to use pencil and paper for his math. He's got to do it digitally, which means he's got to do this in his head. Now, when I was a kid, we didn't do math in our head because the teacher told us to use the pencil and paper. Once again, we see get control of the schools, get control of the teachers' associations, and we know they have. There's a lot of blue-haired pronoun warriors that run teachers' associations and are in the schools. Thousands. Soften the curriculum means don't challenge your students. Okay. Let's see here. Gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and movies. They've done that. 22. Continue discrediting American culture by degrading all forms of artistic expression. An American communist cell was told to, quote, eliminate all good sculpture from parks and buildings. Have we seen that? We saw a whole summer of eliminating sculpture, statues, anything that had meaning. And in its place, you substitute shapeless, awkward, meaningless forms. That is exactly right. No art in the commie world. No meaning in the commie world. 23. Control art critics and directors of art museums. Quote, our plan is to promote ugliness, repulsive, meaningless art. End quote. And they're doing that. So, out of the 23 that we've already gone through, I believe that 20 of them have been 20 of them are in the bag. And that one that one really hits home. Eliminate all good sculpture from parks and buildings. And boy, did they. They went in there and pulled down George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, abolitionist, slaver, Civil War people. It didn't matter. Didn't matter who they did, if they did good, if they didn't. Eliminate all good sculpture. Then they went to change the names of the schools. You can't go to George Washington Elementary, and it's cheaper just to change one name, so let's make it George Floyd Elementary. From George Washington to George Floyd. That's what it means to eliminate good sculpture and replace with meaningless art. Remember when Nancy Pelosi came out and said, thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing yourself for justice? Do you remember that? I do. The George Floyd murals. Yeah, you remember that one that was taken out by God, man? The one in Minneapolis that was struck by lightning? That was fun. So, don't think that there's nobody looking over you. Even if you don't subscribe to a certain flavor of religion, there's something out there. 24. Eliminate all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and a violation of free speech and free press. That's an interesting one. Because if you have free speech and free press, obscenity should just be part of that. Eliminate all laws governing obscenity. Could this possibly be the drag shows for kids? You can't censor the drag shows for kids. I don't know if I'm reaching there, but that's kind of what that's the obscenity. And they're allowing that. They're not eliminating all laws, but they are allowing those things to happen. I don't know. I think we could probably have a discussion about that. I could be wrong on that. 25. St. Floyd of fentanyl. Oh my God, that is funny. Oh man. Oh, what the hell was that? Hold on a second here. There's some dude walking down my street looking like Sons of Anarchy. He's got a sleeveless leather vest, a mullet. He looks all greasy. I've never seen that guy before. Jeez Louise. All right, where are we at here? 25. break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books, magazines, movies, radio, and TV. Well, we know flat out that's happening. They're promoting pornography in schools now. They give all these students Chromebooks and don't block anything. So, as far as I'm concerned, the schools are giving children pornography. And I mean that as exactly as it sounds. I do believe that the people in charge of the schools are personally giving children pornography by giving the Chromebooks that don't have blocks. There should be, in a non-communist world though, right? An internet for students where you cannot find pornography. You cannot go to Marilyn Manson videos on YouTube. There should be, I don't know if it would be a database or a website, or if you're in junior high or high school, you should be able to go to a place online where it's like an online library, basically. There should be none of this pornography, obscenity, and all that. You don't need that. The only reason you want that is to degrade the brain, to create a degenerative addiction. Okay? 26. Present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, and healthy. Well, we see that every day with the woke. Okay? The obese are normal, natural, and healthy. The trans, normal, natural, and healthy. There's no mental health problems there. Homosexuality, I'm at the point, I don't give a shit what people do. Just be cool. Okay? But if you're going to hide behind, normal gay people to kind of get access to, say, kids or whatever, that is unacceptable. Jail for you. Worse. Okay? But this is on the list. So this is all done. It's in the bag. 27, also in the bag. Infiltrate the churches and replace revealed religion with social religion. Wokeness. Discredit the Bible and emphasize the need for intellectual maturity, which does not need a religious crutch. There's your social religion. Wokeness. There it is. What are we at, like 24 out of 27 so far? 3 or 4 of these are the only ones that they're still working on. 28. Eliminate prayer or any phase of religious expression in the schools. Done. On the ground that it violates the principle of separation of church and state. Remember, these goals were published to expose them in 1958. Coincidence? 29. Discredit the American Constitution by calling it inadequate, old-fashioned, out of step with modern needs, a hindrance to cooperation between nations on a worldwide basis. That is also done. 30. Discredit the American founding fathers, present them as selfish aristocrats who had no concern for the common man, or if you look at it through the lens of diversity, equity, inclusion, and wokeness, they're racists. They're misogynists. White supremes. Our country was built on white supremes. That one is in the bag. 31. Belittle all forms of American culture and discourage the teaching of American history on the ground that it was only a minor part of the big history. Give more emphasis to Ruski history since the communists took over. This is also in the bag. The guy walking down the street is a disciple of St. Floyd. Yeah. I don't know. He looked to be about 55. He looked to be more like a disciple of like Iggy Pop. He's all kind of greasy and looked like he just came back from being rejected from a Sons of Anarchy show. what do you call those? An interview. What's an actor's interview called? A audition. Good Lord, I'm getting old. Words are getting lost in my brain. 32. Support any socialist movement to give centralized control over any part of the culture, education, social agencies, welfare programs, mental health clinics, etc. One more time. Support any socialist movement to give centralized control over any part of the culture. I think we've already seen this as well. Support any socialist movement to give centralized control over any part of the culture. Education. Pretty sure we've seen that. Social agencies, which would be... Give me an example of a social agency given centralized control. Would a social agency be, say, the police? Or would it be like... What do you guys think about social agencies? Welfare programs would be, and mental health clinics would fall under social programs. Social agency would be what? DSHS? Social and Health Services. Mental health clinics would fall under what? Medical. Let me know what you think on that social agencies one. CDC. Social agencies, CDC. Huh. Okay. And they did have centralized control over a part of the culture. Okay, I can see that. Okay. That's interesting. All right, moving on. 33. Eliminate all laws or procedures which interfere with the operation of the communist apparatus. So, eliminate the ban on mail-in voting? Because that interferes with the commie apparatus. I wonder if that's what Joe Biden calls his weenus. The communist apparatus. Hey, Jill, I was wondering if you want to come on over here and give a tug on the old communist apparatus. 34. Eliminate the House Committee on Un-American Activities. I've never heard of that, so it must have been done. Social agencies, going backwards. Thank you, chat. Medicare, Medicaid. Holy cow, I think you're right on that. IRO. Oh. The ideas room is coming through. Thank you. IRS. The WHO, yeah, that's just that's for the world, but yes, I agree. And since the WHO is so intertwined with the UN, I would imagine, yes, you're correct. Well done. Well done, my friends. I love it. You bailed me out of that one. I've never heard of the House Committee on Un-American Activities. But I would imagine that they would love to look at this J6 thing. I would really like to see a independent review of that. And I think the only way we're going to get that independent review is if we do it ourselves. And the only person that's even, I don't want to say attempted, but got any traction on looking at it from a different way other than through the lens of insurrection of the communist apparatus was Darren Beattie from Revolver News. Remember when I did that a breakdown of his article, the same video, the same live as the Bill Ayers thing? I still think that that's Bill Ayers up there. The more I get into this, the more I think that might be that son of a bitch. And I talked to a bunch of people. I talked to some big YouTubers, and they said it looked like him, but they were stuck like on the nose. Everything else, the ears were covered. Everything else, they're kind of like, damn, that really looks like him. And I talked to some people that are very, very big on YouTube. And I sent it to a couple politicians and a couple major media people. Didn't hear shit back from them. So I think up here, where was it? Gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and movies. Infiltrate the press. So I think what you're seeing is there's certain people that are playing their part even if they're controlled opposition. And I think we know that. And they just, behind the scenes, they're just pulling their communist apparatus because that's what they're paid to do. Moving on, 35. Discredit and eventually dismantle the FBI. Boy, if that one doesn't make you go, wow, holy smoke, I don't know what does, because that's exactly where they're at right now. I don't think there were phone calls between Nancy and Roy Epps. I think that's one of those theories, because I looked into that and there is zero proof. 36. Infiltrate and gain control of more unions. Well, I think that's just a goal no matter what. And I think, yeah, they probably have control because they have control of everything else. 37. Infiltrate and gain control of big business. Done. Done. Did you see what... Right when this whole thing started with the Cornholio, remember when Trump had all of those business heads? He had the guy from Walmart. He had the guy from all these huge businesses. Okay, and everybody was like, look, it's the government and it's corporate, it's fascism. That's where they started calling Trump a fascist full time. And they don't realize that the left has big tech, which, you know, gets up into here, into the censorship. They censor everything, right? It's wild. They have everything. This one just killed me, though. Discredit and eventually dismantle the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Not that I mind, but it's a communist goal. 38. Transfer some of the powers of arrest from the police to social agencies. You remember defund the police and get social workers out there? There's that. Transfer some of the powers of arrest from the police to social agencies. Treat all behavioral problems as psychiatric disorders which no one but psychiatrists can understand or treat. That's a scary one. Imagine somebody like Joe Biden telling you you have a psychiatric disorder, and then you go to a psychiatrist and they're the only one that can understand or treat you. That is insanity in itself. That's a huge one. And yes, that is happening now. What are we at? 35 out of 38? We're nailing it. Dominate the psychiatric profession and use the mental health laws as a means of gaining coercive control over those who oppose communist goals. Mental health laws as a means of gaining coercive control over those who oppose communist goals. MAGA force. Kinsey Whitty. You can just Google 45 communist goals, Congressional record. There should be a whole bunch of them. This one's just one of many that were up there. I just chose it because it was in PDF format. A lot of them are in just kind of article form, but stick with me here, almost to the end. So they're literally going to start saying MAGA people are mentally ill, extreme, however you want to say it. That's how they're going to start to control those that oppose these commie goals. 40. Discredit the family as an institution. Well, they're doing that. encourage promiscuity and easy divorce. Well, number 40 is firmly in the bag. And down to the last 5, ladies and gentlemen. 41. Emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of parents. That's what they're doing in schools. Okay? They want your kids to be transgender or non-binary, and they don't want to tell the parents to keep the kids safe. Okay? That's, once again, we're back to this whole libs of TikTok thing. That person, libs of TikTok, she's doing a serious service to the country by showing these people in their own words what they're doing to the kids. Attribute prejudices, mental blocks, and retarding of children to suppressive influence of parents. Okay, attribute prejudices to suppressive influence of parents. Attribute mental blocks to suppressive influence of parents. Attribute retarding of children. So, there's retarding of children right there. And what did they say earlier? Soften the curriculum. Those are synonymous. Retarding just means suppressing. Okay? That's why there's fire retardants. It's a fire suppressant. Okay? That's a synonym. Retard, suppress. They're making your children dumber, and they're going to blame it on the parents and their suppressive influence. 42. Create the impression that violence and, oh, there's our buzzword, commie buzzword, everybody. Starting over. 42. Create the impression that violence and insurrection are legitimate aspects of the American tradition. That students and special interest groups should rise up and use, quote, united force to solve economic, political, or social problems. So that right there is Antifa BLM being supported by these shitlibs. United force. That's politicians. That's media. That's BLM. That's Antifa. Don't forget that the ladies who, and I use that word because I can't think of anything else, the ladies that founded BLM were personally trained by Weather Underground terrorists that bombed the United States Capitol. Okay? Go back to my video, American Communist Revolution. Yes, it's clunky because I was all over the place, but it is correct. That is correct. I go on a deep dive proving that BLM is communist. They used, what was it? I think it was $6 million to buy the Communist Party headquarters mansion in Canada. Okay, they're full-blown communist. The Deputy Prime Minister of Canada is a descendant of a Nazi collaborator. And you should see her face when this guy calls her out for it. She just smiles when he calls her a traitor. And it's the most evil-looking smile because she knows nothing's going to happen. These people are slime balls. And that's why I'm happy that there's millions of people waking up and just leaving the Dem party. They can see it. Now, I hope they don't just immediately flop right over to the right side like there's only one or the other. Be in the middle, where normal people would be. I mean, I know it's fun to be on a team, but you have the left, you have the right, and you have logical centrists. A little bit of this, a little bit of this. Those are the people you want to be around. The people that are on the left are getting increasingly crazy. The people on the right are being pushed really hard, especially with rhetoric like we saw last night. Moving on. 43. Overthrow all colonial governments before native populations are ready for self-government. I think that's exactly what we do. In the bag. 44. Internationalize the Panama Canal. internationalize the Panama Canal. I think is China building another canal? I think I heard something about that. Okay, there's another one I'm not exactly sure of. I know it can be used by many different countries, but I don't know about this. So we'll call it, I don't know. So I think we're at like, what, 39 or 40 out of 44? 45 and final. Repeal the Connolly Reservation so that the United States cannot prevent the World Court from seizing jurisdiction over domestic problems. Give the World Court jurisdiction over nations and individuals alike. So this is like the court version of one world government. So you have one world government, and now you have a one world court with jurisdiction over nations and individuals alike. So all I see right here is basically like a wish list for Klaus Schwab. That's all I see there, is everything he's been wanting to do for quite some time. Now, I don't know any other way to say that. But there are the 45 communist goals. I'm a little more nervous than I was after reading those, because they are, 40 or 41 completed out of 45. And the only reason the other 4 are not completed is because I'm not sure. So it seems like what Smedley Butler is saying might be coming back around. And I think last night, with Joe Biden being just so divisive. Let me get I think that might have been a coming out party for these folks in the future. So, let's go ahead and see if I can find that picture. Give me a second here. Is this new? Check this out.
Mr. President, do you consider all Trump supporters to be a threat to the country? No, everyone. Okay.
Come on, look, guys. You keep trying to make that case. I don't consider any Trump I do think anyone who calls for the use of violence fails to condemn violence when it's used, refuses to acknowledge that an election has been won, insists upon changing the way in which the rules can count votes. That is a threat to democracy.
Boom. Thank you, Joe. Let me go back over this. You didn't condemn Antifa or BLM, so there's one hypocrite point for you. The Dems are the ones that changed the voting rules because of Cornholio, so there's 2. Now let's go back. You just said you don't consider any Trump supporter to be a threat to the country. Yet, let's go back.
No, everyone. Okay.
Come on, look, guys.
Come on, look, guys.
You keep trying to make that case. I don't consider any Trump supporters.
He says he doesn't consider any Trump supporter to be a threat to the country.
Anyone who calls for the use of violence fails to condemn violence.
You failed to condemn violence. I saw Trump get really pissed off when those folks were burning down that church across the street. Didn't they make Trump have to run into the basement, into the bunker? They called him, what, Bunker Boy? How many Secret Service agents were injured? I don't hear a word about that. And remember, I'm no Trumper. But when you say shit like this, you're forcing me to say the truth, which makes it look like I'm defending Trump, which I'm not. I'm not a politician fan. However, when you bullshit to this level and you get called out on it, it kind of looks like I support the other guy. Moving on. Refusing to acknowledge an election, like in 2016, right? We can go through all the tweets from people like Hillary Clinton and that ilk. They were all about Russia. Russia, right? So there's two against you right there. What did Goebbels say? It was basically just a projection thing, but what was the quote? Accuse the other side of that which you are guilty. Now imagine being good enough at politics, speak, and spin to where that's your default. That's what we're seeing here. It's provably false. I had this guy call me an idiot early because he thought when I say provably, I misspell probably. So when I say things are provably false, he thought I mean probably false, and he's calling me names about that. And I had to tell him, your brain doesn't work. Those are two different words. These are the kind of people we're dealing with. They don't research. They hear the TV say something, and then they think inside their empty head, they think, it wouldn't be on the TV if it wasn't true. Yeah? Those are the kind of people you're dealing with. So when you say this stuff, you're forcing me to correct you, and you're putting me in a boat where I look like I'm a Trumpatron. And I'm really just anti-hypocrite, anti-communist. Moving on.
One, insist upon changing the way in which the rules count votes.
Insisting on the way we change, or insisting on the way we change and count votes. Not only can you not speak, that might be me, honestly. That was the Dems. Cornholio. People can't go out. That was the Dems that did that. Mail-in voting. And insisting on no voter ID. Voter ID is racist, right? That was Dems. The only reason you would not want voter ID is if you want to cheat. Think along the terms of a bad guy. Why would you want somebody, if a kid goes in the store and wants to get whipped cream or spray paint, they're going to card that kid. If you want to get beer, cigarettes, weed, they're going to card. Why would you not want somebody to card for what is perhaps the most important facet of being an American? How would you not want somebody to prove who they are? And furthermore, isn't it racist to assume that certain people don't know where the DMV is to get an ID? Isn't it racist to assume that certain people can't afford it? Now, I can understand trying to cheat, but you're making it really obvious that that's what you're doing. I'm sure both sides cheat. That's what politicians do. They lie, they cheat, they steal. I can understand that. But at least be a good liar. But that might be asking a little much. This is the guy that hired Cringe. Cringe Jean-Pierre. Cringe. She's the worst liar I've ever seen. Great communist, bad liar. What else does he say? So that's 3 against you in just this one statement, Commie Joe.
That is a threat to democracy.
So, that's a threat to democracy. We don't have a democracy. We have a constitutional republic. Okay? A representative democracy. When they say threat to our democracy, they're saying threat to our power. And they mean their power. They're not meaning the constitutional republic. They're meaning them in power. You're a threat to their power. Okay? Let's move on.
Democracy. Everything we stand for rests on the platform of democracy.
Everything we stand for rests on the platform of democracy. Which he's saying, mob rule. When you have a pure democracy, it's no different than saying mob rule. So, it's pretty obvious what's going on here. I can't be the only one that sees this, right? Please tell me I'm not alone.
When people voted for Donald Trump and support him now, they weren't voting for attacking the Capitol. They weren't voting for overruling the election. They were voting for a philosophy he put forward. So I am not talking about anything other than it is inappropriate. It is not only happening here, but other parts of the world where there's a failure to recognize and condemn violence whenever it's used.
There's a failure to recognize violence when it's used. Joe, your side bailed out rioters. That's it. People you hired on your staff paid, donated to the Minneapolis Freedom Fund. That's, here comes that word again, provable. Kamala Harris tweeted in support of the same fund. That also provable. Not exactly sure exactly why somebody would believe this and not do their own research. It blows my mind. It really does. Yeah, there's the Jennifer Rubin tweet, so you guys can see it. There's the Jennifer Rubin tweet. It has been deleted. There's that. Let's go back over here. Let's see if I can find a good picture from last night. Let's see here. Let's go on up here. There was a 100. Yeah, that's inappropriate too. Why are they not? Man, all the things he did not mention last night, blowing my mind. Let's go to Biden's speech. Go there. We'll go over here to photos. Yeah, all the things he mentioned last night. You know, he came out. He said you're going to need an F-15 if you want to mess with the government. This is the guy. This is the guy. There he's doing his Beavis impression, and it's weird how these that ledge above his head, that looks like that Nazi eagle, doesn't it? It's in the same shape as that Nazi eagle. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. You've seen it. And odd that he used U.S. Marines as a backdrop almost a year to the day after getting 13 soldiers and Marines killed coming out of Afghanistan. You just use them as a backdrop. But this is just, that's about as dystopian as a person can get. Holy moly. So, like I said, there's old Joey B. What does that make you look? What does that make you think of? That's a cross between a Hitler speech and the Emperor in Star Wars. This picture is iconic. It'll be around for a long time. And it kind of makes me wonder how many other regimes in history have been quote unquote led by a dementia guy. Know what I mean? Just makes a person wonder. So either way, that's just wild to me. Not only was it dystopian just in the aesthetic, just the feel. Look at this. Yeah, the memes are just coming out. That's hilarious. That's what it felt like when we were listening to it. Now, when I was done battling to do my live stream last night, I went over and I watched Timcast because he had Robert Davi on. You guys might remember him. He was in the Goonies. He was the Fratelli brother that kept singing in Italian. And he's been railing against communism for a while. And I saw him make a video the other day, and I really appreciated what he had to say. I would recommend you guys go over. I don't care what you think about Tim Pool. I go back and forth, kind of like him. Milquetoast fence sitter, he calls himself. And sometimes I think he's just a shill turd, just talking about Civil War all the time. And sometimes he makes good points. But I'm there for the guests. And Robert Davi was on. You know, he was in James Bond a long time ago. He was a Bond villain. And he was in the Goonies. That's where I remember him from anyways. Those two. And boy, he was knocking it out of the park last night. He was talking about Bill Ayers, Bernadine Dorn, the Weather Underground. And I was just sitting in the back going, yeah! Because it's like a pat on the back, you know, and you don't get a whole lot of those when you're talking shit about the regime. You know what I mean? So it made me feel good that somebody else sees it and has a platform to blast that stuff out there, because I don't hear people talk about Bill Ayers, Bernadine Dorn, the Weather Underground, BLM being communist, and the flood of communist horse shit that we're seeing all the way down to the bottom levels with these smash and grabs and dropped charges, etc. Everything's coming down on purpose, including these manufactured food shortages, supply chain disruption. All of this is under one plan, worldwide. So, after this guy comes out last night talking about all this division and how these people are so extreme and that thought is dividing our country, not realizing, or maybe they did realize, they're the ones dividing the country, but they want to alienate free thinkers. Okay, free thinking is another way of saying conspiracy theorist. But here's the thing, if you blindly believe all conspiracies, You're a detriment to, I don't want to say the movement, I don't want to say the community, but you know what I'm saying, right? You're a detriment to the people who do think critically. So make sure you do the reading. Chop it up. If you're wrong, admit it and get back on track. If you're right, say it and get back on track. But they are going after the Q people, the ones that believe the most outlandish stuff, the most unprovable stuff. And they're saying it like it's fact. Those are the people they're going to latch onto and point and say, you're all like that guy. You're the least common denominator. Everybody in the group is equal to the least common denominator. It's like intellectual equity. Everybody gets reduced to the dumbest one in the room. That's equity. Bringing them down to the lowest common level. And I don't want to see that anymore. I want to see solutions. I want to see pushback but not violence. I want to see mockery. I want to see more mockery of these people that they think it's okay to call everybody white supremes. They think it's okay to call everybody racist. Those words have lost their meanings. That's where we are. If everybody's white supreme, what about Larry Elder? They called him the black face of white supremacy. Where are we going? Okay, there was a white woman in a, what was it? Was it a pig mask? I think it was a pig mask. But it was like one of those Antifa weirdos. And she was following Larry Elder, calling him names that I can't say here. At the same time, the LA Times was calling him the black face of white supremacy. Okay? And I agree. We do need law and order. We are a country of laws. But it needs to be equal. Not equitable. Equal. If you commit a crime, get your ass in jail. It's that simple. You don't get a get out of jail free card for your skin color, your religious beliefs, your sexual preference, etc. Your ideological beliefs. You don't get a free pass. Shouldn't. Anyway, but you do. Far lefties get passes. That's just a fact. So, I would like to see solutions. One of the greatest solutions is read. Become radically self-reliant. Push back, not violently. Okay? Be the change you want to see. If they're pushing full communist, okay, that's what they're going to do. You're never going to beat them. So you have to build your skills in the areas they're trying to destroy. Self-reliance, the family. Okay? Put out, I don't want to say broadcasts, but put out information exposing this stuff. Similar to the one we're doing right here. That's the way it needs to work. They're trying to empty institutions of goodness. You're trying to put it back in. Okay? Yes, Bear, if everything is racist, nothing is racist. Well, here's the thing. You're correct, but what they're doing is they are targets. Okay? These institutions. And they're going to call them racist until they control them. I just bit my tongue on that. Sound like Mike Tyson from now on. Bit my tongue. Everybody love Mike Tyson. It does lose its meaning. A lot of words lose their meaning when they're used wrong. Or if they don't lose their meaning, they'll flat out change the definition. And we saw that a lot with Cornholio. The natural immunity. The V scene. All of those got their definitions changed. And there was a couple more as well. So, that is where it stands. And I want you guys to be the change that you want to see in the world. Okay? You can call people commies. You can make fun of them. Say almost anything Stay nonviolent. Open up people's eyes nonviolently. Okay? Mockery, humor, art, and information. Have conversations. Okay? Spend a little time proving people wrong. Show them the evidence. That's what we have to do. I'm going to go over here to the chit chat. Save the children. This is on all of us. We need to restore law and order. That's correct. What does that say? What does that say? FJB has small hands. Yeah. Yeah. That's all the better to get a hold of his tiny communist apparatus, right? Audit all judges, police, teachers, states. At this point, when it's so entrenched, it would have to be a complete rebuilding of pretty much all institutions, because there's police, like you said, all of those people, judges. You just saw with the Epstein judge that okayed the raid on Trump. Okay, so all the way judges, police, for sure. Police are known to be some corrupt bastards. Not all of them. But, yeah. Teachers, well, we already know. States, so that would be what? State level politicians? For sure. Absolutely. You don't get to positions like that without being, at the very least, compromised. So, keep doing your studying. If you want to support the channel, links in the description. There's a Cash App. There's the Etsy if you want some glass. If you have any information or just want to say hi, my email is mrbeaker2022@gmail.com. I will be back on Monday. Still no idea what the topic for that day will be. So it might end up being a Weird World update. I appreciate you all. Thank you for hanging out with me for just under 2 hours. Deb Woods, I don't know what to tell you. This was supposed to be a Patreon. I will get this thing ironed out, and if not, we'll just shut it down and